Greetings, friends. What's up, and welcome to another episode of Into the Necrosphere. This week, I am talking to Jon Davis of Conan. We discussed his new record, Evidence of Immortality. We also spoke about what life was like for him during and straight after COVID. And then we went down a very interesting rabbit hole, talking about a project he is working on at the moment, which I do believe, if it comes off the way that he is talking about here, I think that it has the potential to cause a true paradigm shift in the music industry. A loaded statement, but you're going to find out all about it in just a few minutes. Also, make sure you stick around straight after that chat, because I will be reviewing the new Grima record, and I will be doing my usual news, rants, and react segment. This week, there are singles by Strigoi, Behemoth, Black Lava, and others just begging for my critical ear. And of course, we'll probably talk about a couple of spicy topics as well. If you're new to the podcast, make sure that you elbow drop the subscribe button on your podcasting platform of choice. Follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And do remember to check out the Into the Necrosphere Teespring store if you want to buy yourself a hoodie, a t-shirt, or whatever else is on offer there that catches your eye. And then most importantly of all, make sure that you follow my fellow horsemen of the podcast apocalypse. On a Monday, there is Horrible 666 hosted by Brandon Legion. On a Wednesday, Mike Hill of Tombs and Scorpion Throne hosts the excellent Everything Went Black. On a Thursday, Mike Hill joins up with Jeff Kashid and Mike Scandato to do Necromaniacs. And then at some point during the week, you'll also get to hear my friend Carl Hikara and his great new podcast, Soul Knocks. We cover a gamut of topics, including horror movies, music, culture, and really whatever we're interested in talking about at the time. And if you subscribe to all of those podcasts, your entire week is covered with high quality, high value entertainment. Speaking of which, I would like to welcome to the podcast Jon Davis of Conan. So, first question that I have to ask this of everybody who I speak to at the moment. How have you been? How has the past kind of 24 months been treating you? Obviously, I know, you guys have started getting active again slowly but surely. You've got the new album coming out, and I know you've played some shows as well. Yeah. But, what is the craziness of the last 2 years meant for you and for the band?
Well, for the band, it's meant that we've taken our time to record the album. It began. We started writing the album sort of towards the end of 2019, and we intended to record the album during 2020 and maybe release it September or something.
Yeah,
and that would have been pushing it anyway, but that was what we were trying to do. So we got some demos together 2019, and then all of a sudden COVID hit. And the rest is history, and a familiar story for me and for any other band is that it obviously just shut us down completely in terms of touring. We just paid for a US visa, couldn't use it.
Yeah,
and there are just numerous various ways that kind of go without saying really how it affected the band. But one benefit, if you can look at it in this way, is that it gave us more time to write and record the album. It gave us more time to write the album. So instead of pushing to do it in a couple of months like we were going to and just kind of getting it out there quick sort of thing, it made us take a longer view of it, and we were not in a rush to give feedback on riffs, not in a rush to discuss song ideas. And I've got a modest recording setup at home here, and I've got like my computer behind me there, and I was just recording stuff over drum tracks on my computer, and coming up with some really cool stuff. I experimented with time signatures and started to get some ideas, which I think they haven't all gone on the album, but it made me a little bit more open-minded about how the album might sound. And it gave Chris more of an idea of how he could produce stuff and how he could take the songs in a certain direction when we started knocking them into shape more. And as frustrating as it was, when we got to the end of 2021 and we played Bloodstock, and we went to Oslo, went to Antwerp, and although it was a bit of a ball ache at the airport with COVID mask and all the forms and all that shit. But just to be able to get out there and play again, it gave us a real sense of freedom, which helped us get the album recorded. You know, we felt like all of a sudden we felt like things were all right again. So we recorded the album and, you know, got it all out there and it's getting released soon. So from a band level, it slowed us down, but it didn't ruin anything.
Yeah.
It made the album better, in my opinion. Obviously, I don't know what the album would have sounded like if we had have released it back then, but I bet you any money it would have been nowhere near like it sounds now. So that's just one thing. Better or for worse, probably worse. On a personal level, I got married in January 2020 in New Zealand, and then I was like,
congratulations.
Oh, yeah, thank you. So I said, Sarah, my wife, I said, I'll see you in a month or two then. Let's get this visa boxed off. Went home, did all the paperwork on the plane, got some of it submitted, talked to the solicitor, blah, blah. Yeah, no problems. And anyway, obviously COVID then shut down the visa office in the UK, shut down the visa office in New Zealand, and she was not able then to apply for her visa. So we didn't see each other till September. So I'm really good at masturbating now, and I've seen all of Breaking Bad. I'm actually really good at Call of Duty as well. So for those three reasons, it was actually pretty good. But
yeah,
in all seriousness, it was kind of a good time for reflection as well, because like I gave up a lot and to work just in the music industry. You know, I set up a few, like a label, a management agency, and the band. And I think during lockdown, some of that fell away naturally. But like Conan merch sales were strong. Blackbow Records record sales were pretty strong too. And I started to change on priorities a little bit on what I wanted to work on. I actually I'm in the process of developing a software platform at the moment, like a networking and management platform for the entertainment industry, which came out of nowhere in 2020 summertime. So I've got a team now, I've got an investor, got a grant on the way, so that's like a big deal now. That's going to sort of be a bit like LinkedIn, I suppose, but mixed with some sector specific tools. So, and then obviously Sarah came over September. Some tricky times getting used to being over here, but we made it through it, you know, together. And I had to homeschool my kids, so we're getting used to that relationship more. And it was a difficult time, but now that we're sort of on the other side of it, sort of like it felt like a good workout for me mentally, because I from 2000 I gave up a career in HR 2013, thank God for that, to work in music full time. And then it came to like summertime 2021 and I ran out of money. You know, you sort of like the wheel of turnover was going round and round, but there wasn't much profit in it as things were getting a bit tighter. So I thought, I better take a day job. So I took a day job at the Home Office, and I'm now at like a higher position there. So right now I'm got a day job. I work in an office. I hate it, but I love the people. I love the job. Yeah. I hate that I have a job, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So we'll see how long that lasts. But yeah, on a personal level, it's been an opportunity for growth, to sound like a hippie. But on for the band itself, it was kind of cool just to take some time writing the album.
Yeah. I'm interested in this the software platform that you just mentioned now, because I was listening to a conversation about of all people, Andrew Tate, and I don't know if anybody knows who he is, but you know, agent provocateur, you know, professional troll. Now, actually, fun fact: my daughter used to date his coach from Storm Gym at Luton. So I've known for many years of him, and frankly, you know, as much as people might think he's an arsehole, you have to tip your hat to that guy for how much money he's made from nothing. That guy was fucking dirt poor. When I first got to know my daughter's mom, that guy was a broke ass kickboxer, and he's, you know, multi-millionaire now. But anyway, what got my gears spinning was they were talking about this Hustlers University thing that he does, where you basically you buy, I think it's £36 to become a member of Hustlers University 2.0. and there's various courses on different stuff. But one of the things in it is affiliate marketing.
Yeah.
And this guy is talking about how brilliant it is that basically he had people paying him to dramatically explode his social media presence. And I kind of started thinking to myself, Jesus, man, I wonder why in the music industry, especially our scene, no one has yet come up with something that can create sustainable revenue for bands and artists in the new world.
Yep.
Because, like, you know, we all know that you guys aren't going to make as much money anymore from from selling music. So, and streaming revenue isn't what it should be. And equally, what I've also noticed, as I speak with people, is many people have taken stock of their lives and things like that, and they've realized that they don't want to be on the road all the time either. So that drudgery of, the album tour cycle and being on the road 350 days a year, I think is also a lot for a lot of people to handle. I think a lot of people have also, from a physical and mental wellness perspective, realized that it's not, you're not going to live a long and healthy life doing that shit.
Yeah.
So, like I said, my thoughts were, and I don't want to labor the question, but my thoughts were like, why has nobody come up with a way in which we can monetize this? And I know people have been talking about NFTs and all of that stuff. I think is bullshit in the long run. So as soon as you said that, I was like, Jesus, it's ironic that I thought about it this afternoon and that you mentioned this now. So without giving away any trade secrets, because I would imagine there's a lot of stuff under wraps, and I can swear a blood oath, but I can't vouch for my millions and millions of listeners.
Yeah. I'm not going to get you to sign an NDA now while we're on air, so I think we'll be all right. No, we are. We're just okay. I don't know if you're in a band or not. I'm going to talk at you as though you're not. So from the perspective of a band who doesn't have any contacts, how do you know you want to play in, I don't know, Brussels, and you're a black metal band? Who do you talk to?
Yeah.
At the moment, you put an advert on Facebook. You put in one of the touring groups. Who's the guy or girl to speak to in Brussels? Who's the guy or girl to speak to about, I don't know, a skate punk show in Leiden, Holland? So these are all like common, regular, everyday problems that bands have. I'm 46 now. I remember when I was 18 and in Liverpool, you got like Cathedral practicing next door, and they're touring all over the place, walking through with no shoes on. And I'm thinking that they own this place, basically. They are like the kings right now. Anathema's tour and stuff is in the corridor and all like that. And I'm thinking, how do I get to that? How do I get touring like them? And I didn't know. I didn't have the foggiest. On the bar was a magazine, like a little A5 booklet. It was paperback book, like industry contacts, tabernacle or whatever they call it. So I opened it up, and it was just like a list of phone numbers and telephone addresses of all the people that you might want to deal with, and you need to send your demo to him or her, blah blah blah. And I thought, how old is that book? And it may have been a year old, I don't know. But even now in 2022, so we're talking 18 years to 46, so we're talking 28 years later, there is still a market for having just like a static database of contacts you can't interact with. You can just copy and paste that email address and put it in your email and then send them an email. The email address may or may not still be in use, because that database may not have been updated for 6 months. But look how current Facebook is. Those people on your contact database on Facebook are there because you added them. If they're active because you can see when they were last active. Yeah. When they were, you may have spoken to them recently on the messaging inbox. So the idea that I have and we are developing is like a networking thing where you build up your own network. So if you've only got 12 people in that network, well, at least that you only have 12 people and you need to expand it. I think right now people have like a load of followers on Facebook. They might think that they've got that many people interested in them. In reality, there's probably only half a dozen or whatever, I don't know, 500 or whatever it is, of those people interacting with your page. And I think that fallacy of having like a big contact database that you don't interact with holds back a lot of bands. So our platform is like a networking platform. So at a basic level, you add people that you want to be in contact with. but it's specific to the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
So the only people on my contact list will be all the promoters that I deal with, or the local record store in Philadelphia who wants to take demos from my band because I only started last week. And it, like, the inspiration behind it was a magazine that I discovered called Book Your Own Fucking Life. And that was early 90s in America. It was like an underground hand-printed magazine that was like a compendium of who's who in the cities around the USA. It was updated every 6 months, and you'd find it on the counter in a record store, or, you know, there'd be like a dog-eared copy of it in someone's van down the back of the seat.
Yeah.
You'd be able to say, oh yeah, we're in Cleveland in 3 days. Who do we know? Oh yeah, John at number 49 West Close has got an advert in here saying you can sleep on his floor. Bands are welcome. I'll give him a ring. So you get to the phone box, you ring him. Yeah, come and stay. You can sleep in my place tonight for nothing. That kind of sector specific, seek and ye shall find type of networking doesn't exist. Right now, if we've got a Discord chat, me and my team, there's 7 of us, plus an investor, plus we got the local authority we're applying for a grant right now. On our Discord chat, we've got a thread just for screenshots, and every day people are saying on the touring groups on Facebook, and that's where they all advertise. And these are people who would be able to just log into SceneGen, and they'll be able to look at the map, zoom in on Brussels, zoom in on Munich, filter it by black metal or punk or doom metal or comedy or choir or LGBT friendly gospel, whatever the
I was just about to say, what I would want to see obviously most is gospel. So
yeah, exactly. I thought so. Looking at that shit, I thought it would be, and but being able to search, and it's not just in heavy metal either. It's taken that idea which existed in the underground that has never been developed into something digital. People think Facebook has cracked this, and no one's had a go at doing this. And and actually, it is a very big task. We're creating something that is big. It's not something that's just going to be a mobile phone app, like Snake or something. It's a big. So it's taken us 2 years. So we're still in development, but we're getting close to a point now where we can log in ourselves and feel around things a little bit. So it's called SceneGen. SceneGen, SCENEGEN.io is the website. So pass that to your millionaire mate and see if he wants to invest in us.
I'll let him know.
Yeah,
I think it's a absolutely fucking brilliant idea, and I think one of the things that it potentially does as well. I mean, I don't know what kind of your plans for the layout is, but I think one thing that, again, it's a recurring theme when I talk to people. People will talk about promoters being unreliable and promoters canceling a show at a moment's notice for spurious reasons. It kind of holds both sides accountable as well. Yep. Because I would imagine, especially if it's a dedicated network for industry professionals and artists, there is kind of that indirect pressure that's created that if you fuck about with, if you mess around with artists or you're unreliable as a band, you kind of develop a reputation, and you could find yourself iced out of the network. And the other benefit that I instantly see from what you're saying is you're removing some of those gatekeepers that, honestly, again, without naming names, we know of an awful lot of people that sit inside of the music industry that really just they add no value. They just leech off the hard work of the artist, and their entire existence is a grift. Yeah. So to be able to remove that, I think benefits artists exponentially, and actually it puts the money in the hands of the people that are working hardest to earn it. That's
true. And just to expand on what you're saying, not every artist needs a booking agent, but right now they got no choice.
Yeah.
So what we and actually we're not going to take away business from booking agents, because booking agents can only work with so many bands. So the booking agent that we have, Conan, in Europe only handles 3 or 4 bands. She's our friend. In America, he maybe got 20 bands. In the UK, we have a different guy who maybe got 15 bands. But I know that only 3 or 4 of them are doing a lot with him, us included. So we're not a threat to them. In fact, our platform is built for them as well, because you can have a roster of bands on there, and you can be assigned certain rights to their profile so that you can manage their bookings and completely fine. As a tool for them. And we got something called Gigwell at the moment, which does a bit of that for them, but there's no networking on there. There's none of my peer group are on Gigwell, as far as I know, from those people that we've spoken to. We did some research, and it was over 60% of the people who responded to our questionnaire were using Microsoft Excel to manage their contacts. I mean, that's just ridiculous. So in this day and age, that, you know, we're building something way better. And you're talking about gatekeepers and the glass ceiling, the whole raft of issues associated with that, like contacts, booking contacts are like a commodity. You know, any booking agent will feel better or worse depending on the number of contacts and the number of useful contacts that the booking agent has will influence people's perception of their worth. Can you get me on that festival? Can you get us a show with Old Empire down in the Black Heart in London? Yeah. And some promoters can, some promoters can't. But what about all those bands who aren't yet of interest to those promoters? But those bands, there's nothing for them. And I was there. I've spent longer as one of those bands than I have being in the position I am now, which I'm very fortunate that we're of interest to promoters and booking agents. But how do you get your demo to a promoter for that support slot with Conan in 6 months? You're one of 20 bands who are going to bug them all the time, and you're going to be emailing them, which most promoters hate. You're going to be bugging them on Facebook, so your private message will be alongside a message from their mum confirming dinner Sunday.
I was just about to say, like with social media, there's so much other either content being pushed at you or different messages. I mean, you know, I would imagine for you, it's, you know, collection of dick pics, bare breasts, the whole thing. And then you got
all sorts of dick pics. Yeah, I send photographs of my bare breasts, and I get dick pics back. That's how I troll men. But like, I mean, when you go on Instagram or Facebook now, within a minute of you being on there, it's just TikTok reels.
I don't. That's the thing. The algorithm messes it up as well. So you know, you've got to deal with a heaving inbox mostly full of bullshit. And then, you know, like I said, the algorithm in terms of the content that goes out to you would also be an issue. But so this again, without divulging any trade secrets, like, are you planning to monetize this? Is it something that you can kind of see is you're able to monetize, or is it just you're kind of doing it so that you can? I guess is the initial plan to build a network and then think about how you monetize it, or do you already have a monetization plan in mind?
No. I mean, we have ideas of how we would monetize it, but we certainly wouldn't be forgetting about those artists in lots of different types of entertainment who simply don't have a budget for something like this. Yeah. So we will be monetizing it, yes, but we're certainly not going to be forgetting about the little guys, because that's where we see it being of. That's where we see the greatest volume of our potential users coming from. So as bands get bigger, as comedians get bigger, as choir ensembles get more popular, they tend to have a manager then. Yeah. So but by the time that you got like those 10 big heavy metal bands, they might have one manager. So we would want that manager to use us. But what about the thousands of smaller bands who can afford £10 a month? Maybe if they all put £2.50 in a pot, then maybe they could afford that. You know, there are lots of different pricing points that we'd look at. Lots of different options.
I was about to say, I guess you could also create a scenario where it might potentially in this network be easier for bands to connect with labels as well. Yeah. Because again, I mean, that's another area where there's an awful lot of gatekeeping that goes on, and I've said it many times on this podcast. There's so many great demo bands that I get sent, and I cannot. I mean, I've listened to this music for a long enough time now and studied this industry for a long enough time that I look at some bands that get signed, and I look at some bands that get overlooked, and I can't put two and two together, and equate why one would be overlooked in favor of the other.
Yeah.
The only thing that I come back to is that it's not getting past certain people and into the hands of the right people.
Yeah, and not knowing who to talk to.
Yeah,
and and having not knowing who to talk to or how to contact them. I mean, I have the same problem now in a way, because like obviously I'm like reaching out to angel investors to say, are you interested in scene gen? Would you like to invest in scene gen? Fortunately, I stumbled across somebody who is helping us now, or is about to help us. So that challenge is similar to what the challenge that's faced by the sort of artists that we were just discussing before, who may not know which promoter to talk to about what show. But there's all different levels. Like a middle level band who go on a month-long tour can use the tour planning function that we have.
Yeah.
So they can build up a tour, start in Brussels, ending in, I don't know, Milan. Plot out a map. It'll tell them how many miles they've done. It'll tell them what contacts they've got in all those cities. It will auto-generate a message to them saying, "Oh, hey, this band would like to come to your city on this date. Would you please block out some time in your calendar?" You send that off. It will, if they're registered on Scene Gen, it will put a temporary hold on that day until they respond, which is an incentive for them to respond. So on and so forth. There's lots to it.
You're going to be rich, mate.
We'll see.
The days of working at the Home Office are probably over as well.
But in all honesty, and if any of my colleagues, they won't be watching this, I'm sure, but actually I really enjoy it, and it made me, and for as long as it lasts, it's helped me to feel sane. Because for a long time, like, not that I didn't feel sane. When I started back at the Home Office, when I started having like a day job, and believe me, the first day was a real challenge. Like I was honestly completely uncomfortable, like a fish out of water. I almost got off the train 3 times, not while I was moving, fortunately, and to come home. Yeah, I thought, I can't do this. It's like I'd spent so long, and I was so idealistic about, I'm just going to be the guy in the band. I don't want to have a day job, and I was almost ashamed, but then at the same time frustrated. Felt like I was letting myself down. Felt like I was letting my kids down because I'd spent so much time away from them in the band that all of a sudden I'm going to get a day job, and all that time wasted away was in vain. So that was playing on my mind. But then I went into work and started that first day. I was on training for 2 months. And I started to just really appreciate being around people again, instead of it just being around band type people. And I started to just feel like a normal member of society again. Honestly, it was weird. It was a transformation that I didn't expect.
I can imagine it must be pardon the interruption, but I can imagine it must be a big adjustment, because you mentioned finishing your previous office job in 2013. And so then to go, nearly 9 years, 8-9 years until you get, I mean, that's a long stretch of time to be used to a certain routine, and then to suddenly upend that. And, now you're kind of clocking in again. You have a line manager that you have to report into. Obviously, with the training, I would expect Home Office, you learned, if the visa doesn't look this way, this is how to wield the club. That sort of thing.
Yeah. No comment. But yeah, I know what you mean.
My fiance's brother works for Border Force, so I hear all the stories, mate.
Yeah, I don't get involved in that side of it, fortunately, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
It was. I realized just how awkward I was around people before I went back into this job, and like in, I don't know what you do for a living, but when I did this job, we had like the classic round the table, getting to know one another, and they had to do two truths, one lie. I didn't have a clue what to say, and I was like second guessing myself. Should I tell him I'm in a band? Should I tell him about my kids? And I think I fucked it up somehow. I told them like 3 truths or something like that, and they didn't believe me on one of them. I had to convince her to show them the video or something, and it was just like, God, this is weird being around other people. But I got used to it again. Now I'm like a caseworker. I'm dealing with some complicated issues. And I listen to my music on my headphones almost all day when I'm in work or podcasts. And I've settled into this. It's the best type of job I could have had in the circumstances, honestly.
Yeah.
But I mean, I hope I don't have to do it forever. I mean, the kids' summer holidays at the moment, and I've been in work 9 to 5 Monday, well, not 9 to 5, but I've been work 8 hours a day, Monday to Friday. So it's not the life I want. So we'll see how things progress in the next few months.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can speak from personal experience. So I can tell you what I do for a living, and I think some people know on that listen to the podcast. So I'm in talent acquisition.
Oh, yeah.
I'm actually the vice president for a very large talent acquisition outsourcing company. So HR adjacent. I work in probably the most buttoned down corporate type environment, and I still turn up to client meetings and very, senior stakeholder meetings wearing a Mayhem t-shirt.
Yeah.
And I'll definitely say this. The one thing that I learned over the years, the first company that I worked for was like the quintessential city recruitment company. In my first interview, and I appreciate that person had actually taken the time to have that conversation with me. God knows why they hired me, because I had dyed red hair that was spiked up like Wayne Static. I mean, I looked like a fucking asshole. So I walked through the doors and had my first interview, and the interview went really well. And at the end of the interview, the guy who then later became the CEO said to me, "Listen, Jackie, two things I want to tell you. Number one, sort your fucking hair out, because you can't come to work with that. You can't. You will not be taken seriously by a client looking the way you do right now." I said, secondly, because at the time I was totally straight edge, and as you can see from the Camden Hells, those days are over. Yeah. He said, secondly, you can like whatever you want. We don't grow clones in this place. But if we go out to the pub on a Thursday night and you sit in the corner looking depressed, then this is not the place for you.
Yeah,
that was a big eye opener for me. But what I still struggled for a long time, like all the stuff that I'm really passionate about, music and all that sort of stuff. Like, could I turn the volume up on that? And in that company, not really. But actually, my last conversation I had with my manager as I left, it was actually him that said to me, when people warm to you most is when you're most like yourself, most authentic, proud of the stuff that you're into. You don't take yourself seriously enough to where you get grossly offended if somebody says, "Oh, that metal stuff, it's bullshit." I mean, nowadays, if when people find, like, I'll have an ask me anything with one of my teams, and the other day they asked me, "Oh, we see these t-shirts do you wear? What music are you into?" And I kind of laugh about it and I say, "Oh, folks, whatever I listen to is going to sound to you like a lawnmower being thrown down a flight of stairs." And I think people, especially nowadays, I think people are a lot more accepting of that, and they respect that openness, not taking yourself too seriously, but being authentic. They respect that a lot more. And there's a lot of folks, either who I work with, who are clients of mine, who've seen the podcast, and I do warn them beforehand and say, "Look, one, I've got a potty mouth, and secondly, sometimes these conversations get quite spicy, so you brace yourself if you get into this." And they all seem to like it. And I do think if you're a person with genuine intentions and people can sense whether there's malevolence behind your behavior or whatever the case may be. And they will pick out the good from the bad. As much as I'm pessimistic about the human race generally, I do think in the main, the world right now, the workplace, the modern workforce is a lot more accepting than it used to be. So my question to you then is, I mean, do the guys that you work with right now, do they know about Conan?
Yeah, they do. I've told them all about it and sent them a few videos of us playing live and stuff. And I mean, at first it was like, "Oh yeah, that's cool," but I mean, I don't do it. I did it a few times just to let them in on who I was, sort of thing. And we none of the group are into like heavy metal at all. Not one of them.
Yeah.
So, but the one person who talks to me most about it is probably the person that you would least expect to be so interested in it. And I won't give her a name, but she's one of the ladies who are at work, and she asks me all the time, "You're going to what's the name this weekend, aren't you?" We're playing in Portugal on Friday. So she's like, you're going to Portugal this weekend, aren't you? I'm like, "Oh yeah." She goes, "Well, when's Brazil?" We're playing Sao Paulo in 2 weeks. So I'm telling her all about that, and she's like, "Oh yeah, God, you'd be knackered," and she just like wants to talk to me about the band, and I love that, because I felt a little bit self-conscious about bringing it up often because when I get talking about it, I kind of don't. I just go on and on and on because I'm so excited about this. Is what I do.
Yeah.
And especially to people who aren't really into that music, they don't understand how cool it might be to rock up at Obscene Extreme in the woods somewhere and play. They certainly don't want to know about the show that came on after us, where the girl got covered in blood and whatever. I'm not going to go into that, but like that was weird.
Yeah.
And it was just like, yeah, it's cool. I don't send. I'm tempted to even now send them. Oh yeah, this is what we got up to the weekend, but they know enough about it now. I don't need to ram it down the throat. It's not their thing, really.
It's interesting how you guys broke through the glass ceiling, because I remember somebody turning me on to you about, this must have been like 2014, 2015. And I mean, it was kind of the same as a lot of other people have spoken to me about the band, is like, basically, listen to this. I've never heard anything so obscenely heavy in my entire existence. And then I listen to it and I go, okay, how do these dudes write a song? John takes the steroids and then grabs his guitar and starts playing. It's like,
I mean, the steroids definitely aren't working, let me tell you.
But I mean, it's like, it's the most unabashedly Neanderthal fucking violent heavy shit that I've ever heard in my entire life. But like I said, it's in a way that's what kind of makes it so charming. And why, like, you hear it the first time, and I mean, I've heard a lot of heavy stuff, but like, it's so nuts. You can't. I mean, I'm laughing right now because that's my first response listening to it. It's like, Jesus fucking Christ! How did they come up with something this ridiculously brutal? Yeah.
We've just like, I remember when we first started that. I internally verbalized. That's not the right word. You can't verbalize something internally because verbal is speaking. Everything you've just said there verbally, I was thinking of when I came up with the idea originally. I just wanted something super simple, which was all I could play. I'm a little bit better now, but I'm still not a technically gifted player. I'm not saying that as a joke. That I'm serious. Like, I can play what I play, but back then I was even more limited in my technique. I mean, I could play like power chords. I could play Nirvana or Green Day or whatever, but I couldn't play Anthrax or Metallica. You know, I couldn't do any like actual proper riffs. I can now a bit, but I couldn't really then. So I just wanted to play stuff that was super simple, super stripped down, but invest like the lack of sort of flair that I could put into my playing. I wanted to put into how it sounded.
Yeah.
So I wanted to have like cool old valve amps and like extra speaker cabs. Obviously, over time, realized that cool old valve amps don't last very long. So that was a problem that I learned about very early on. But I just wanted to play just super simple, dead heavy music, and it really was just as simple as that, and just shouting tune over it. I thought if I can get somewhere near like Tom Araya, just like screaming and shouting over the music, then that's kind of all right for me. I know of bands who aren't as cool as that who get to tour, so maybe we can. And then I chose the name. I think when we started releasing demos, you had a demo on stonerrock.com, and he said, oh yeah, the vocals sound like they're in the next room, and we just recorded this in our practice room, don't forget. And then when we recorded our actual demo in like, I think January 27th, it was 2007 exactly, at Crash Studios in Liverpool, I was like, I just want a dead simple, just make it dead heavy, loads of bass, and just have the vocals with loads of reverb and delay. And really, those basic things are still in place now. We have a few little bits of lead guitar, little bits here and there, but I chase the buzz in the song in exactly the same way now as I did back then when I wrote Satsuma and Krull. It was all about just hitting the note and letting it ring out. When we got more of that on this album, than we did on Existential Void Guardian. There's less filler on this album, in my opinion, than on Existential Void Guardian. Has got a few bits in it that I'm not really happy with, honestly. We tried some stuff vocally that we loved at the time, but I don't think anyone really noticed. So on this album, we were like, well, fuck it. Let's just, I wrote the album the night that Russia invaded Ukraine. I beg your pardon. I wrote the lyrics the night.
Jesus.
Yeah. Well, maybe I had 15% of them written. I didn't have any structure. So as I'm sitting there watching the news, my wife's in the other room, and I just sat there and was in a blind panic about what was going on, and wrote the lyrics for the album, put them in some sort of order. Next morning, drove down to Foal with, listening to the news because they just crossed the border into Ukraine.
Yeah.
And feeling like shit about the whole thing. And we recorded the vocals that day. So it's kind of soaked in that war, this album for me. It's not about that war at all. But I think a lot of the emotions that I'm conveying with the lyrics, even though the lyrics aren't about that war, I think a lot of the emotions are definitely inspired by what was going on around then.
There's definitely, from all the songs I've heard so far, there's definitely more of a groove and more of a swagger to this new music than there was on the previous record. A great example being Levitation Hoax, which I think was the first single that you guys put out.
Yep.
But like I said, it's got a real groove to it. And one of the things I was listening to, and I was actually, the first time I heard the song, I was in the gym. And one thing that struck me, and you kind of touched on it as well, about some simplicity. I was like, listen to Johnny's drumming. And that is an example of a fucking great drummer, where he sometimes he'll play a groove, and then the fill almost chases the groove. It's like this super simple, like da 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 da, and then back into the groove. It's like nothing crazy. You're not doing like a Pete. I mean, a Pete Sandoval fill is great, but he's not going across the entirety of his drum kit 7 times, in the space of 20 seconds. Yeah, exactly. It's like there's a real sort of there's a natural energy to this new music, which I think which I really love. Like, it immediately spoke to me about this record, much more so than anything I've ever heard you guys do before.
Yeah.
So I mean, as far as like how you guys actually do write music, so steroids aside, was it a case of you kind of putting together stuff, band playing, tweaking things, or are you a band room band? And I'm thinking specifically about how being apart during COVID would have affected that as well.
Yeah, we definitely are a band who writes better when we're in the same room. I know of other bands who kind of write it all, and then they'll bring the album to the rehearsal room, and then they'll all just jam it together, and it's all laid out, nice and neat in Reaper or some other recording software. I can't operate like that because I'm a bit scatty. So I'll get like a 4/4 beat or 5/4 beat or whatever tempo it's going to be, and if I'm feeling like flamboyant, I'll create something in Easy Drummer that sounds a bit like a Conan drum beat. And there is actually a Conan drum file now on Easy Drummer, I found out. And so I'd use some of that actually on the album just to create something that would inspire me to play along to. And I came with a couple of riffs to that. So I wrote the album, wrote the guitars in that way mostly, but really I just when we came to record like towards the end of 2021, all we had were the demos we did in 2019 and a few developmental ideas around those which I've come up with since then. Me and Johnny had like 1 rehearsal room or maybe 2 rehearsal room sessions through the whole period of lockdown. And then what we had but we didn't use was some tracks that Johnny had written back and forth on Dropbox, because I bought an electric drum kit for him. So he was doing a bit of rehearsal on the drum kit. Sorry, I would send him riffs in a certain time signature tempo. He would then load his recording software, load up my file that I'd sent him, and then record his own drums over it. It was just a massive pain in the arse because it didn't ever sync up right, and then he broke the snare drum because he's a brute. And in the end, it was just like, oh fuck it, let's just wait until we get into the room. So we kind of gave up trying to write it remotely, like about halfway through lockdown. Honestly, we waited for a couple of rehearsal sessions, and then towards the end of 2021, by the time we got in the room, I was sick and tired of worrying about writing the album, that all I wanted to do was just get in there, spend a few days. We got Johnny over and we recorded the guitar and drum, the guitar guide guitars and the drums sort of in like the space of 3 or 4 days, and got the album done then. So the structure was set then. Chris edited a few bits and bobs, but like basically the song was, all we needed to do then was flesh it out, put the guitars on and bass. So once the drums were done, after that, I started to feel much better about the whole process, because I don't like writing albums. Honestly, I love I love recording albums. I love knowing that it's created now. Every album that I've written that I seem to remember has come along with it some sort of stress. Like Existential Void Guardian, I was going through a separation. The album before that, Blood Eagle, same relationship, just not long into the recording studio that we just built in our house, but there were some financial pressures which made me not feel good about that, and we weren't getting along well with one of the other band members who subsequently left. That was a bit of a bummer. Monos, I was just smoking weed all the time, so I can't even remember what was going on then. And, Horseback Battlehammer was just like, oh, let's just record something and get something documented. That was never going to be anything. So, but this album, because of lockdown, it was like, oh, for God's sake, can we just like have one album where we just were able to write it in a nice, relaxed fashion with no stress and nothing weird going on? Hopefully the next one we'll get to do that. We'll see. The whole, like, it feels like I'm extracting something from myself, and it always brings with it a lot of self-doubt and lots of self-criticism, and like sort of like not anxiety in the traditional sense, but just like I can't relax knowing that I haven't got this album written yet. So it's like I can't just chill out and say, oh yeah, that sounds great, let's record drums next week. I don't feel that way. When we get to the studio and we record drums, it's only really then, when the drums are done and the songs are set out structurally, it's only then that I can say, oh yeah, okay, cool, now I can enjoy this now. I don't know whether that's unique or not, but I don't know. I enjoy rehearsing. I love jamming. But if you said, let's write a song today, I'm like, oh, it feels like hard work.
I think the self-criticism isn't unique at all. So I'm good friends, and I've had him on the podcast a few times. Matt Wilcock of Antichrist Imperium. He used to be with Aquacocker. He's now with Werewolves. And if you know anything about Werewolves, that's the first band that he has, he's been involved in, where he's kind of consciously made the decision not to overthink it. He records and it's done. And I mean, and just doing that, letting his guard down, or kind of parking that self-criticism to the extent that he has resulted in 3 of the best death metal records, in my view, of the last decade, at least. So, but, I know of an awful lot of people, and I've spoken to an awful lot of people who are extraordinarily self-critical. I mean, that's part of the reason I never got into music, because I can play guitar. I tried writing loads of stuff, and I would write something, I'd pain over it for months, and I'd go, this is fucking bullshit, it's garbage, I don't want to listen to it. I literally, the only thing that ever got out of mine, and it's on a demo that's floating around on the internet somewhere, is 1 vocal performance and 1 set of lyrics. And that's it. Everything else is crap. Everything else I just wrote off as garbage. I mean, I'm so bad with that. I wrote a whole book when I was 15 years old. It took me over a year to write. And I remember reading back over the book when I was finally done. I'd celebrated, taken my pocket money and gone to a restaurant with my friends, celebrated, came back, started reading the book. I was 3 pages in. I deleted it off my computer. I was like, this is total trash. I don't want anyone to see it.
That's a shame.
It's just, I think if you're of a certain mindset, that that's just how it is. But I mean, look, if you think about the end result of where all your psychosis and all of your personal quirks has gotten you, it's a band who has a bona fide, cult following and is, growing. As I said, you kind of have this notoriety around the band, and it's clearly working for you. But you guys, your first show back after lockdown was Bloodstock, was it not?
Yeah.
What was that like? What? Firstly, what stage did you guys play?
We were on the Sophie Lancaster stage. 2 takeaways from that. I realized how much weight I'd put on in lockdown. Like I couldn't believe how big I looked on stage.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I've been able to get rid of a lot of that. And secondly, I was surprised that I could sing the way I wanted so soon again. Like, my voice is like of a particular type where I have to be able to contract my muscles because I sing like a higher register.
Yeah.
So that can often go wrong for me because those muscles get tired if I haven't eaten right or I haven't got enough energy, or if I'm not warmed up enough. They're just like any other muscle. If you don't use them, they're not as strong. So I was worried about that playing, but for the whole set, my vocals stood up. So yeah, they were the two main things for me. But in terms of like the bigger picture, being able to get back on stage again and play in front of a big crowd at a festival like that was great. And the fact that it was a leading UK festival was quite fitting. It felt like a nice welcome back into things. And yeah, we loved it. We come off stage thinking, wow, okay, that was great. And then
a lot of people seemed really, really up for Bloodstock last year. Like, again, I think it's because they were the only festival last year that went ahead. But people really seemed up for it, and all the video that I saw, the crowd was massively into it.
Yeah.
I don't like all the bands that were on the lineup, but I could definitely tell. I think people were kind of down with it, no matter who was on stage.
Yeah.
They were just happy to see live music again.
Yeah, totally. I agree with you. It was a really good atmosphere. Everyone was wearing masks, of course, which kind of, I am fully on board with doing whatever is required around COVID. A lot of people got sick from it, so no messing about there. But it was weird to be at a big festival and then to have so many restrictions on where you can go and what you can do. Yeah. Fortunately for everyone, or fortunately for those of us who are still around, those restrictions have kind of come away a bit now, so it feels more like normal. So when you go on tour, you're not worried about your health. That's I don't worry anymore about COVID or whatever. I'll follow the rules, whatever they are, but I'm not going to let it worry me on a daily basis.
No.
Well, yeah, but
you mentioned the COVID weight gain. I mean, I myself was a victim of that also. I mean, I've always been religious, 5 days in the gym, and sometimes I miss it. Like tomorrow, I'm going to miss, unfortunately, because I've got a meeting first thing in the morning, so I have to traipse out to Reading for that. But for the most part, I try and get into the gym 5 days a week. When that's suddenly taken away from you for an extended period of time, you can work out from home all you want. You will turn into a fucking sack of shit very quickly. Like how much weight did you put on during lockdown?
Think about 1.5 stone.
Mine was about 2 stone.
But it was around my belly though. That's where it was visible. I started to get the same sort of shape as my dad. Like I have my chest, and then it kind of went out like a box of cornflakes, and then come down again like this massive belly. And I was like, why am I this shape? I was never this shape. I looked at old photographs from like the year from the shows that we did leading up to COVID. I was like, that merciless fate shirt didn't ride up and show the underneath of my overhanging belly. Then why is it doing it now? How much weight did I put on? So I thought I got to do something here. So I have been focusing on my fitness the last couple of months.
What have you been doing?
Gym and personal trainer. So I'm working with this guy called Reza.
So I'm friends with him on Facebook actually. And, he's everything he posts, all his content is always very sound. He seems like he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, so far so good. I mean, I won't say that I stick to it religiously, but I feel like I've got a toehold on living a bit better right now. So I'm just going to try and build on what I'm doing. Like I'm going to the gym tomorrow morning, just like I'm up at 5:45, for example, to make sure that, because I don't want to go after work because I'm flying to Portugal tomorrow night. Well, I'm flying to Portugal Friday morning, but I need to sleep a few hours in the airport tomorrow night. So whatever. So, well, yeah, so far so good. I'm eating a lot better, focusing more on protein. Don't eat sugar anymore. Don't eat crisps as much as I used to. I did relapse the other day, honestly, but Yeah, great. I'm just trying to sort of live a little bit better.
And the relapses are not the end of the world.
Yeah,
you know, I think when they become a daily relapse, as they did for many during lockdown, including me, that's not so good. But I think I think people often beat themselves up an awful lot about falling off the wagon when they're on diet, and they'll fall off the wagon, and then it's like, well, now the diet's ruined, so I may as well just carry on like this. It's like, well, that's just one day. You know, it's not one day doesn't make a difference. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
It's only a packet of crisps. It's not like it's not a gatto. You know, you're fine. You'll be all right. Just you did go to the gym the day before. You probably burn most of it off anyway. So so I don't feel too guilty about it. I've been actually really good with the whole like try and avoid things that I normally would eat, and I don't drink beer much at all. Not a big drinker, so that's never been a problem for me really. So fingers crossed. But I've slimmed down a little bit, and I've got lots to go, but definitely feeling a lot better.
And like for me, I think my fiance is 15 years younger than what I am. I think the big thing that became very evident for me, I don't know, it was something that started to weigh on my mind. I don't know if you're in the same boat. I started to feel a weight of responsibility for taking care of myself, because I don't want her to be in a position where she is 60 years old and a widow. You know, like I'm fortunately on my side of the family. Most people get pretty old, with the exception of the people that smoked. I don't smoke, so I'm not too concerned about that. But I feel like I need it. It's even more important that I take care of myself.
Yeah,
because I've obviously explicitly mandated that she's in no circumstances allowed to date, meet, marry anybody else after I'm dead.
After you've gone, yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be tough because I'll be stuffed, and I'll be in the bedroom, obviously, and there'll be animatronic voice recognition. I'll be talking just random shit, but maybe just playing episodes of my podcast.
You should put like an Alexa inside your hollowed out skull, and she can say good night to you.
Yeah,
and you can respond through gritted teeth.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. But yeah, I mean that became a real thing for me. Like I think the first time it hit me, I remember it was shortly after lockdown ended, and I was at the gym, and I actually like started welling up. Like it just, the weight of it suddenly like popped in. It's like, Jesus Christ! It's like when you're 80, she's only 65 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to get your fucking act. I mean, I was looking at myself in the mirror at the time, and I said to myself, "You need to get your fucking act together." Yeah. So like I said, I think lockdown was something that brought a lot of things into quite a bit of perspective and focus, for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you know what, we lived through something that most people can't say they lived through anything like that, can they? I mean, I know World War II wasn't so long ago. And if you're living in the Middle East, there's reasons to feel relieved that you lived through conflict over there. But us over here in little old soft and fluffy England we're not really had much to deal with in our lifetime. So being able to get through something like this is character building, at least something to tell the grandkids about.
Well, it sounds to me like we might be ending up with electricity blackouts in January. So you best learn to play some of those Conan songs acoustically.
Give me an excuse to burn the house down anyway. Keep everyone warm.
Perfect, brother. What's outside of Portugal plans for you guys over the next couple of months?
Next couple of months we got Portugal this weekend. Then a couple of weeks after that we're in Brazil. A couple of weeks after that we're in Poland. I think a week or two after that we're in France. Then end of October going to Canada, and then our main focus then will be a US tour next year. That's the gist of it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I had an absolute blast talking to you.
Same. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. And, I'm looking forward to hearing the full record when it comes out, but also scene gen. So when you get rich, then, I'm going to be trading on that and say, multi-millionaire, Jon from Conan, he was on the podcast. All that sort of thing.
And by being on a podcast without him knowing, he's actually given me 5% equity. I better call him about that.
As soon as he clicked join call, it was like he signed.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So, all right, dude. Thank you so much. Take care of yourself.
Cheers, Jackie. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That track was The Levitation Hoax. It is off Evidence of Immortality by Conan. It just dropped this past Friday. And if you haven't checked it out yet, you can do so thanks to Napalm Records. So make sure that you do. I'll post the link in the description to the podcast. So if you head over to their Bandcamp and you buy yourself some music or some merchandise, then make sure that John and the lads know that it was all Jackson at Into the Necrosphere that sent you. A big thank you to John for coming on the podcast. An absolute blast talking to him. And genuinely, I do, as I said at the top of the podcast, think that if he can get this website up and running, and he can execute it the way that he has said, I have a feeling that it could cause a genuine paradigm shift in the music industry, especially in our scene. Let's now talk about some new music. And Grima is a band out of Russia. I have had them recommended to me by a great many people, including many listeners of this podcast. Mark Morris of Mark's Metal Minute did a review of them the other day. I knew I had to check it out. So my opinion, funnily enough, probably aligns pretty closely to his. For those that don't know, Grima are based out of Russia. They've been active since 2014. They are helmed by two twin brothers, Morbius and Wilhelm. And Frostbitten is the name of their fifth record. It was put out by Naturmacht Productions, who I've not really heard much of before. Dropped on July the 29th, 2022. It is slow-ish, dark, atmospheric black metal. But one of the things that instantly kind of sticks out to me about this band is that as much as it is atmospheric black metal, they're not the sort of band who are content to either sort of lazily play around with one riff for 15 minutes as some folks in that subgenre would do. They're also not a band, who are kind of lethargic in the way that they deliver their music. I think one of the big criticisms that I've always had of atmospheric black metal is it lacks that bite of a band like Marduk. Grima have the violence, they have the attack that you would want from a black metal band, but they really do know how to get the atmosphere up to a kind of peak level. They start off the record exceptionally well in that regard. Gloomy Heart of the Coldest Land being the first track. And, it kind of starts off in a very grandiose fashion and then immediately moves into, using things like a traditional Russian bayan, an acoustic guitar, all sorts of things like that. And they use it sparingly, but they use it exceptionally well. Straight after that is probably the record's most accessible track. And unsurprisingly, I believe this was the single that they put out for the record. It's called Giant's Eternal Sleep. From there, you go on to Into the Twilight. Into the Twilight, interestingly enough, kind of shows off a bit of a love for Sisters of Mercy, Bauhaus type goth. Whether intentional or not, it definitely comes out. And I did kind of think to myself later on in the record, there's a song called Moonspell and Grief. I did wonder how much Moonspell these guys listen to, because there is definitely a hint of what they do there. And I think what would have been a very nice touch, and I mean, this is not a criticism, this is kind of more fan making a wish kind of thing, but it would have been quite nice to have Fernando Ribeiro drop some of his clean sung vocals on the record. As it is, the vocals on the album are, again, much like a lot of atmospheric black metal bands, buried pretty far back in the mix. It does work. Again, I think maybe they could have been a little bit more punchy than they are, but to be honest, there's so much going on and so much exciting stuff going on across the rest of the record. It's not really something that, in any way will distract you. One thing that I'll say for sure, Vlad, the session drummer, who is responsible for the skins on this record, really does a great job of spicing up even the slower portions of the record. And one of the things that he does do is when the record picks up and when it kind of needs to be bombastic, he really comes to the fore, and helps those moments and helps those songs really, really shine. One of those songs happens to be one of my favorite songs on the record. I'm going to play it for you right now. This is Grima, and the song is called Hunger God. That track is Hunger God by Grima. The album is Frostbitten. Again, I will post the link to their Bandcamp in the description of the podcast. Make sure you check them out, and if you buy yourself some music, make sure you let them know who sent you. Big shout out once again to Mark Morris of Mark's Metal Minute for his review, because it inspired me to check it out, and I would urge you all very strongly to follow him on Instagram. Great guy. Clearly a man of impeccable taste, given that he listens to this podcast, but he's been on a bit of a tear recently as far as quick 1-minute reviews and recommending some really solid stuff, including Grima. Right, time now for the easily triggered and the weak to run for cover as we march on to Metal Storm for my news, rants, and react segment. All right, friends, let's get started. The first headline that is attracting my attention is that Candlemass has a new video out. I am a big fan of Candlemass, have been for a very long time. Excited to see that they are coming back. It says here to promote their long-awaited new studio album, Sweet Evil Sun, which is out on November the 18th via Napalm Records. The Swedes Candlemass offer in listening the Scandinavian God single alongside a visualizer done by Kostin Korianu. And excuse that frog in my throat. It's early morning, as you'll see if you've been watching this on YouTube from my t-shirt change. But anyway, I'm going to take a sip of my coffee, and we're going to get listening to Scandinavian Gods. I'm liking that very much. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Candlemass anyway, so they don't have to go very far to convince me to check them out. But yeah, like I said, I think that's cool. I think the riff is great. I like that chorus very much. That I can certainly hear being sung at many European festivals, maybe even a couple of stateside festivals. But yeah, you can for sure see people getting into that. I think the vocals are very good. If I am not mistaken, this is their second album, and I had to actually double-check this as the song was playing, with Johan Longquist, I believe is how I pronounce his name. But I think he does a very good job on the vocals, and I mean, as I said, the rest sounds like Candlemass, which is not a bad thing at all. So good stuff, and very much looking forward to hearing the rest of Sweet Evil Sun. But I'll get back to this, and let's see what happens in the next minute or so.
Fly through blood and purple.
One very random thought that I just had as I was listening to that, were he still with us upon this mortal coil, I can tell you who would have been a fucking great vocalist for Candlemass, and that's Warrel Dane. I know for most people, Messiah is the textbook Candlemass vocalist, but obviously, I think he left the band back in 2006. But they wanted to find a top-notch replacement for him. Warrel Dane would have been the man. But Johan Longquist doing a good job there, and like I said, I like that song. So looking forward to hearing that record when it comes out. Strigoi, King of All Terror single premieres. I am very pleased to announce, folks, that I have got in the diary right now a interview with Gregor McIntosh of Strigoi and Paradise Lost fame. And unlike my usual reacts, I have actually heard this whole record quite a few times. It is fucking fantastic. I said that on last week's podcast as well. But I'm going to let you guys hear it anyway, and I'll give you my thoughts as we kind of move through the song. But hopefully that Gregor McIntosh interview happens. That's one that, as all of you know, I've had on the list of things, or a list of wish list guests for fucking ages. So very, very excited to talk to Greg, and very excited for everybody to hear this whole record, because it is absolutely tremendous. And as I said, in that Bloodbath Strigoi face-off, for my money, I think Strigoi comes out tops, without any question. I mean, there's really no competition between the two. But let's get into King of All Terror, and we'll see what you guys and I'll tell you what I think when we're through at the first minute or so.
Suicide, 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 suicide.
I'm going to stop it right there because I want to highlight that little kind of guitar line that's playing over the main riff as one of the things that, I mean, Greg has done this for most of his career, but one of the things that just helps elevate the song to something, altogether different from, just a standard kind of old school worshipping death metal band. And there's a lot of old school worship in there. I can hear hints of old school thrash, maybe a little bit of Discharge, band I know Greg is a big fan of. I myself am a very big fan of Discharge also. But it's little touches like that just helps make the music that much more interesting and that much more engaging. What I will say is with regards to this song, there are tracks like this on the record, but there's also songs that kind of harken back to Greg's Doom roots. And one of my favorite songs in particular probably has a lot more in common with some of the slower songs that you found on the Valenfire records than it does this. But I'm loving this. As I said, for me, the album is absolutely top-notch. And a reminder again, it is out on September the 30th via Season of Mist. But let's get back to it for another 60 seconds or so.
Lead your servant to war, raining hellfire on the innocent and unborn. Rebel in damnation, under the shadow of the divine.
Fan-fucking-tastic. And here's an idea. Season of Mist needs to get Tombs, Gairia, and Strigoi out on the road together. And maybe they can get the Black Anvil crew in there with them as well. What a fucking lineup that would be. And what a lineup those guys are building up at their label. I would say Season of Mist, Deborah Morty, Napalm Records are assembling a fucking three formidable rosters on their respective labels. Again, this was a fantastic signing, and the record is just absolutely top-notch. Okay, Act of Denial is in the studio. Act of Denial, the international melodic death metal act featuring Steve DiGiorgio of Testament, formerly of Death and Sadus, and Bjorn Speed Strid of Soilwork, amongst others, have announced that they are in the studio working on the follow-up to last year's debut album, Negative. Its debut single is expected in the near future, while the new record will not be released until early 2023. I have no idea what Act of Denial sounds like. Melodic death metal, as I've said before, not my vibe. I do, however, very much enjoy the work of Steve DiGiorgio. I fucking love Sadus. You guys will know my thoughts on Testament, so a band I'll definitely check out when that single is released. Stormruler, debut new song and video. Black metal outfit Stormruler have launched an official music video for Sacred Rites and Black Magic, their newest single that is now available for streaming via YouTube player down below. This is the title track of the group's upcoming full-length effort, which will be released by Napalm Records on October 14th, 2022. Spoke of Napalm Records, another one of their big releases. Stormruler, I really liked their first record. I got into it after Kelly T's appearance on the podcast. Kelly T, for those who don't know, of Slaves to the Underground podcast fame. By the way, I hope they do some more episodes at some point, because things have been a little quiet on that front for her and for Matt, her co-host. I know she's busy promoting a lot of shows and things like that, so it might be that that's taken up a lot of her time. But I get on extremely well with her. Would love to have her back on the podcast at some point. I mean, I could potentially get her and Matt on. I think that would be a fun episode. But, got into Stormruler on their debut record when she recommended them to me. I have not heard Sacred Rites and Black Magic. So let's see what these American young bloods have cooked up. I'll pause there before the vocals presumably kick in. I'm a bit in two minds about this song. What I liked about their first record, Under the Burning Eclipse, which came out back in 2021, it was brazen Nordic black metal worship, but it was very, very well executed Nordic black metal worship, and it had, it had a nastiness to it that I really liked. This, though, it sounds to me like they've traveled to Sweden for their influences as opposed to sticking in Norway, because this sounds like a very, very typical Swedish black metal release circa 1995, 1996. And I bet if I had heard this in 1995 or 1996, I would be going, this is absolutely fucking incredible. But in 2022, as I've said on multiple occasions, the bar has been raised, and it gets raised exponentially every single year. I've got so many bands that are on my playlist right now that I still need to get into. that, at first listen has been absolutely fantastic, that I've not even managed to get round to talking to you guys about yet. That this, I don't know, is it something that I would make place for in the limited time that I have to listen to music? I don't know. It's not bad. I mean, what they do, they're doing well. It's not as good as their debut record, I don't think. But let's wait and hear for when the vocals kick in. It has been 1:15 though. On a song like this, I think you kind of want to get that going sooner rather than later. But anyway, let's get back to it. All right, so I will say this. When those vocals kick in, and especially the section that we've just gone into, it does move the needle in the right direction a little bit. So I will for sure listen to the rest of this record when it gets dropped, and I will do so with an open mind and an open heart, ready to accept the excellence that hopefully Stormruler will serve up. But like I said, that first part of the song, a bit on the boring side, does get much better when the vocals kick in. And that nastiness that I mentioned before, that seems to kind of come back a little bit. So a solid 6.5 out of 10 is my verdict on the first 2.5 minutes of that song. Okay, let's see what else is going on here. I'm not going to bother with Wolfheart or Warcry. I am, however, going to check out the new Autopsy single, Skin by Skin. It reads here, is the newest lyric video for Autopsy's forthcoming album, Morbidity Triumphant, which has premiered online. Matthew Vickerstaff was responsible for the video's creation. The album hits the streets on September the 30th via Peaceful Records. Big fan of Autopsy. Have I been... I frankly wasn't even aware that they were putting out a new record. Or at least I didn't remember. But willing to listen to it. I'm also willing to bet that Skin by Skin was inspired by the traumatic experience that they had at the Milwaukee Metal Fest, where, as some of you who saw the video and lived to tell the tale will recall, one of the most unattractive women in recent memory did the no pants dance on a guy's face in the middle of the mosh pit, I believe during Autopsy set. That man, I'm sure, is still getting treatment to this day, both from the doctors and from psychiatric professionals. And the woman is apparently still at large. So those of you who are at Psycho Las Vegas this weekend, beware. You might be her next victim. But anyway, let's move on to listen to Skin by Skin. kudos to Matthew Vickerstaff for the music video for this. A lot of times these lyric videos, even though I tend to prefer them to scripted music videos, they do get a little bit samey. You know, you got flames in the background, which I know is rich coming from a guy who has flames in the background of his podcast intro. But anyway, you got flames in the background and demons and all sorts of shit, you know, and then in kind of scratched writing, you've got the lyrics. For those watching this on YouTube, you'll see he's kind of created this what looks like a old newspaper with headlines and things like that. That the headlines being the lyrics. Also, I was wondering about Matthew Vickerstaff I was like, where have I heard that name before? And then I realized I have heard it because he is the deputy CEO of LinkedIn. But I think this is a different Matthew Vickerstaff, unless the LinkedIn deputy CEO likes himself some autopsy, which is not outside the realms of possibility. As far as the music is concerned, I don't think this is necessarily going to cut the mustard in a year like we are experiencing. But it could well be that the song picks up. So if we'll give it another 60 seconds, and then I'll give my early verdict on what I've heard. Sucks. And as soon as that, the bit where he does the skin by skin, you've been chosen, I mean, that's when everything just kind of falls apart. I was hoping that when the song got faster, there might be something, you know, a bit more interesting going on here, maybe some more groove, but I think that those vocals aren't working for me. It's very poorly phrased. There's no rhythm in the voice. I think the actual kind of initial part of the song sounds like something I've heard 1,000,001 times. So like me some autopsy, but they're 0 for 1 as far as I'm concerned on new music. Okay, let's move on. Moonspell cancel North American tour, and then it says straight after that, Therion cancel European tour. Now, if I were Therion, I would probably consider cancelling all tours going forward until I've learned how to write a great album again. Moonspell maybe less so, but I will bet any amount of money that the reason why these tours are being cancelled is because of the absolute shambolic state of the airline industry at the moment, where it is almost a guarantee that if you are a band consisting out of 5 guys or 5 girls, as it were, when you turn up at your destination, at least 1 to 2 of you will not have your equipment and your luggage. And I suspect that a lot of bands are cancelling for that very reason, because if you turn up without your guitars or your drums or whatever the case may be, I can only imagine the clusterfuck. I think actually Katie tweeted about this today and mentioned that one of the bands from Season of Mist that are playing at Psycho Las Vegas befell the same fate. And it's a bit of a clusterfuck. I mean, it's so bad now. Apparently, the festivals are actually having to put fail-safes in place, in case that happens with a band. So, and if that does happen with a band, that also obviously costs them a hell of a lot of money. So, yeah, what a complete and utter disaster that is as well. I mean, it's not like the money that they charge is going down. My flights for the end of the year to South Africa for myself and Paige are costing us in excess of £3,500. And the thing that I found most insane about that, the initial price is $3,100. Then you have to pay for the privilege of being able to book a seat to sit down on. You have to pay for the privilege to book a single suitcase worth of luggage. And there was something else as well that they fucking fleeced you for money for. And yet the service remains atrocious. But anyway. All right, Behemoth drop new single. Now, Autopsy may be 0 for 1. Behemoth so far, I would have said they were 3 for 1, because I think they've done about 4 singles off this record so far. And I didn't like that first single, but it has also since started to grow on me. I've got to say, I mean, it feels to me like this is a true comeback record. It's the closest I've heard them get to the Behemoth that I knew and loved, I should say, sorry. And I've liked really everything that they've done so far. It reads here, Behemoth are revealing the another single. The mind boggles once again at the fucking idiots that write these blurbs. But anyway, the Behemoth are revealing the another single from their upcoming record, Opus Contra Naturam, out on September the 16th via Nuclear Blast Records. The track, Thy Becoming Eternal, is available for streaming on official music video. Anyways, the clip was produced by Ruben Fro. Let's give it a spin. There was a brief second there when the clean vocals kicked in that I thought to myself, I am about to be on the receiving end of another dose of children bleating, Jesus Christ! Fortunately, they didn't inflict us with that, but it's a good song. I really like it. I think the riff is good. You know, I love the aggression. It's kind of going back for me. Everything that I've heard so far off this new album is kind of going back for me to The Apostasy, which I think is the best Behemoth record. And I will also throw out a bold statement that Behemoth have yet to write a better song than At the Left Hand of God. I think that is, to me, the peak of their creative powers, and it is absolutely fantastic. But this is good. I like the vocals as well. I assume some of those backing vocals and some of the kind of, I wouldn't say mid-range vocals, but the differently pitched vocals that they alternate, or that Nurgle alternates with at around the probably 50-second mark of the song. Those belong to Orion. Kudos to him as well. And then Inferno's drums are fantastic too. Marco of Stellar Master Elite, for some reason, doesn't really like Inferno's drum production. I don't quite understand why, because even on the Behemoth records that I don't like, I've always thought Inferno is an absolutely tremendous drummer. But let's get back to this one.
The branches of this present tree I would
Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And the other day, I was browsing around on YouTube, and the algorithm tends to kind of spit out random stuff at you. The thing that it spat out to me was the Bartzabel video by Behemoth, and I noticed that they had 13 million views on that, which is fucking mind-blowing to me for a band that makes this style of music. No matter what I thought of the Satanist or of the last record, the one thing that you have to hand to Nurgle and Behemoth, and as I've said, I really felt like this was going to be the case for this dude when I first met him, years back. I knew that they were going to be successful, but they have been, and this was my point. Sorry, what you have to hand to them is they've been successful entirely on their own terms. There's been no mellowing out. There's been no slowing things down. They've not done an In Flames, and done a record that's a bunch of poppy choruses and shit like that. I mean, they are still very much Behemoth, and what I like is it feels to me like this new album, like I said, is going back to vintage Behemoth. Demigod, the Apostasy. For me, the golden age of this band. So looking forward to hearing the rest of the album. But yeah, 13 million views for a black metal band is fucking crazy. Okay, death metal outfit Ripped to Shreds have just announced their first album for Relapse Records. Jubion, I believe is the name of the record, translating to Upheaval, is due on October the 14th. A music video for Reek of Burning Freedom is directed by Kevin Burley and can be enjoyed below. I've never heard of Ripped to Shreds, but we're all about to find out what it sounds like. That is something that I've just heard so many times, and I can get that some death metal fans are going to like it, but when bands like Werewolves exist, am I going to spend my time listening to that, or am I going to spend my time listening to Ripped to Shreds? Or am I going to spend my time listening to Avaturn, or am I going to spend my time listening to Ripped to Shreds? That Avaturn record, by the way, that remains absolutely at the very highest of high as far as my favorite records of the year is concerned. It is such an incredible album, and every single time it's becoming a little bit like the Amento was last year, where when I'm faced with that that conundrum of having thousands and thousands of things to listen to, and what am I going to turn on, I almost always go back to that record. It is just so fucking good. Would love to get one of the guys on the podcast, but the Profound Law folk got back to me and said that basically they're too busy and they're not doing any interviews. So, which is a shame. But anywho, okay, let's check out what else has come out this week. Ritual Dictates have dropped a new song and video. Once again, Ritual Dictates, not a band I know, but they are apparently Canadian death metalers, and they've dropped a new music video for Goth and Exhausted, the song taken off the No Great Loss album. Goth and Exhausted, I would assume, is short for I don't leave the house during the day, and I suffer from a vitamin D deficiency. The album is due out on October the 7th via Artifact Records, and this is a sneak preview of what Ritual Dictates fans can expect.
Watching in store.
Just a note. Apparently, much like the definition of a woman, or the definition of death metal in Canada has become rather loose. I had my concerns when I first saw the little fucking hand tambourine going there, and then when the vocals kicked in, I thought maybe actually when the drums started, I thought, maybe this is a little mellow for a death metal band. Let's see what's coming. When those vocals kicked in, I was like, I didn't see death metal as being the kind of genre where you can do a whole, death metal record with clean vocals, like, Goldsworth did a black metal record with Gol singing. Anyway, as far as the song is concerned, it's actually not too bad. I mean, it's not death metal, but it's not shit. So, let's, I'll give it another 60 seconds.
Doesn't seem great to me. I'm angry, I won't love again.
I'm cursed.
Devoid of life, I feel so empty. I need something to make me feel alive again. It's all so great.
Yeah, like I said, I for sure don't hate that song. I actually quite like it. My only question is, were these guys at one point maybe a death metal band, and then they decided to make a change? Let's check it out. Maybe they were something totally different at one point. Ritual Dictates doesn't sound to me like the kind of name you'd give a band that makes that kind of music. Ritual Dictates featuring Danko Jones. This was a song from 2 years ago. Let's listen to this real quick and see if things have taken a turn for a very, very different style for these guys. Again, I don't know if you've got Danko Jones on your song, if you're death metal, but anyways. All right, clearly it's taking its fucking... Hang on. I was about to say, clearly it's taking its fucking sweet time to get started. But the first split second of that suggests, they were once upon a time a death metal band. Yeah, not bad. I was about to say, clearly someone in the band either is taking the piss or got themselves a girlfriend and decided there was no more need to be angry. But like I said, I actually quite like that song. Leviathan to release demo cassette box set. American black metal outfit Leviathan have had quite a prolific discography in terms of demos. Now some of these will be compiled in the Shadow of No Light demo cassette compilation out via August the 26th via Profound All Records. I like Leviathan. I must confess, I know there's a lot of you that are down with cassettes. I myself am not. I do not understand why anyone could still listen to music on that medium. I'm fucking astounded, quite frankly, that cassette players are still even sold. But anyways, I'm sure a couple of folks are very excited about the old cassette release. Dimmu Borgir to release remixed and remastered edition of Puritanical Euphoric Misanthropia. I wore that record out like a pair of my favorite boxer shorts when it first got released. More than 20 years, it says, after Puritanical Euphoric Misanthropia's original release, Dimmu Borgir are releasing a new remixed and remastered edition of it. Puritanical Euphoric Misanthropia, remixed and remastered, will be out on October the 28th, 2022 via Nuclear Blast. I presume that the reason why it's coming out is to help alleviate the financial crisis foisted upon Nuclear Blast when Marcus went off and started Atomic Fire and promptly took the vast majority of the Nuclear Blast roster with him. But I like Puritanical Euphoric Misanthropy. I see they've got a reworked version of Blessings upon the Throne of Tyranny. Yeah. I'm not going to bother listening to it, but good record. Some very cool songs, and I like the artwork that they've done for it as well. I mean, Dimmu Borgir are Dimmu Borgir, right? They're never going to be the elite of the elite as far as I'm concerned, but they do have some cool songs, and they got some cool records too. Havard to release debut solo album. Prophecy Productions have just announced the release of Havard's first solo release, a full-length self-titled album coming November the 11th. Havard, better known to his mum as Hovard Jorgensen, and his guitar work has been a seminal presence on early Ulver and Satyricon records, recently returning to the black metal world with Dold Vorder and Snoven, and now taking a Kveldsanger-inspired dark folk sound for his solo work. Dark folk is actually pretty cool. I don't mind it at all. It says here, the label posted the following message: the long-awaited follow-up to Ulver's Nordic classic Kveldsanger is here. Havard, the acoustic brainchild of Mastermind and Soul member Havard Jorgensen, a.k.a. Le Marchand of early Ulver and Satyricon fame, will release his self-titled debut album, Havard, on November the 11th. With his passion for the darker side of music rekindled, Jorgensen decided to pick up the loose ends of this beautiful thread that Ulver's Kveldsanger had left behind. This is the first single, apparently called Princeps. God damn, that is fucking fantastic. I mean, that is beautiful. And I'll tell you where it'll sound especially beautiful on my new hi-fi. Yeah, really good. Really, really good. It says here, Havard posted the following message: finally, the cat is out of the bag. My debut album entitled Havard will be out on November the 11th. The first single, Princeps, is a song about birth and rebirth. This is quite fitting as it also represents the first notes that you are hearing from me after a long silence. The track will give you a fair idea of what my new album is about, as it stands for everything that this musical project means to me. There are movements at the break of dawn in it, and the song is also a musical portrait of spring, when life is blooming lush and recklessly. The cycle of eternal growth begins anew, and with it comes the sadness about its inevitable demise. What has happened before be happening again. Yeah, man, fucking hell, that is very, very good. Very cinematic as well. There's something where I could imagine this in a... I'm trying to think what director's movies would suit this best. I don't know. It'll come to me, but I can definitely see this being used in a movie. and it working very, very well. I think that's fucking excellent. So very pleased that Havard has returned to the music scene. Okay, was there anything else that we want to see? Clutch have released a new single. Arch Enemy have put out a new video. Another yawn fest. Creator present official live video clip. Carrying on the embarrassment of their late-stage career. The Halo Effect have launched a new music video, another band I'm not interested in. And then we spoke last week about Faceless Burial. So I think that kind of brings us to the end of our journey upon Metal Storm. But I did want to check out this band, Black Lava, and I specifically saved it for the News, Rants, and React segment. I saw Katie had posted about it. They're a new band signed to Season of Mist. And yeah, I want to give this a spin. So the song is called Soul Furnace. As a matter of fact, I'm going to stop it before we get started on it. It says here, during the turbulent and uncertain years of 2020 to 2021, perhaps none were plunged deeper into darkness than those from down under. However, through solitude and desolation, some of the greatest art is created, as is the case with Black Lava, the emerging blackened death metal quartet from Melbourne, Australia. Naturally, given that they're from Melbourne, I'm always interested, and I have been keen to hear the song, so let's get into it. When I think of black and death metal, I don't immediately think of music that sounds like this, but these guys do remind me of another Season of Mist signing called This Gift is a Curse. Go back to episode 10 where I interviewed Johan, the drummer. Definitely, there's definitely some similarities there, but I think this is fucking excellent. I think the riffing is absolutely tier 1. I think the vocals sound cool. They sound more like hardcore vocals to me than they sound like death metal vocals, but good stuff. The drumming sounds great. I think everything on this is top notch. Very excited about hearing the rest of it. Brilliant. Another great signing for Season of Mist. And I can't wait to hear the rest of that. That is fucking excellent. Okay, let's now turn our attention to the Democrats' Guide to Rock Music, Blabbermouth, and see what gems await us there. Broken Stage forces cancellation of Anthrax and Black Label Society's concert in Rochester. Pantera shares first official teaser for upcoming return to the live stage. The official Pantera social media has been updated with the first official teaser for the band's upcoming comeback. The short clip, which features the opening notes of Pantera's classic song Cowboys from Hell, can be seen below. Although no official announcements have yet been made, there are rumors that Pantera will play Brazil's Knotfest Brazil and Mexico's Hell and Heaven Metal Fest in December. US dates will likely follow in 2023. Not seen the teaser yet, so let's give it a quick look.
We'll take it over this tower.
Cryptic. But anyway, yeah, if they come to the UK, I will most certainly be there, no doubt about it. And I really do hope. I'm rooting for them. I hope that the tour goes well. I hope Phil sounds absolutely great, as I think that he could do, especially given some of the most recent stuff that I've heard of his. Those recent Down live shows that dropped on, I think it's Arte or something, is the YouTube channel. I thought he sounded very, very good on that. So yeah, like I said, I am in your corner, Phil and Pantera. Okay, let's go on. King's X Doug Pinnick on Tommy Lee posting penis photo. I wish I had the balls to do that. So the penis photo, penis gate continues. Kirk Hammett explains why Metallica takes so long between studio albums. The quote here is, "Yeah, normally one of the guys is in rehab or getting divorced or wanting to leave the band, and that's why it takes a while." So, no, it says here Metallica guitarist Kirk Hammett, whose recently released Portals EP marked his first ever foray as a solo artist, was asked in a new interview with Goldmine magazine why he and his bandmates take so long between records, and then they are at pains to tell us here that in 40 years Metallica has released 10 albums. He responded, "You know, it's not getting any quicker too. It's like we have a way of working. We have a process that unfortunately takes a long time. It's just the way we work, the way it is, the way it works as a band, and I've grown to accept that." Hammett also touched upon his songwriting approach in Metallica, saying, "When I go in and create Metallica stuff, I give it my full creative energies. Too bad, probably on average, they use maybe one riff that he writes for a record." Obviously, I know about the solos, but that's different. The way I look at it is all the notes are already there. You just have to find them. I'm serious. They're already there. You just got to friggin' find them. And so there is that, but there's also a reliance on spontaneity, on real in-the-moment creation. I think that's where I'm at my most effective. Yeah, it's crazy to think, actually. It's been 6 years since Hardwired to Self-Destruct came out. A record that was immeasurably disappointing as far as I'm concerned. But as I said before, I will always be rooting for them, and I do hope that when they put out their new record, it will be of the quality of Bleeding Me. Like I said before, I just kind of sometimes wish with them they would just give in to whatever they want to do, because it feels like post And Justice for All, where they have leaned into what they're in the mood for, that's when they've done some of their best stuff, you know, a song like Bleeding Me being an example. Then again, when they clearly also wanted to do Lulu, and I don't know the degree of drug addiction that was addling the band at the time when they put out that trash, but yeah, there's no way that you put out something that horrific without truly being passionate about it. Machine Head shares behind the scenes footage from surprise appearance at this year's Bloodstock Open Air. Never going to be the biggest fan of Machine Head, as you all well know, but I do think that surprise show that they did was a nice touch. Obviously, it was organized by Vicky and the rest of the Bloodstock crew beforehand, but that's the sort of stuff that people remember and will keep them coming back to a festival like Bloodstock. It's one thing, I think, to go to a well-organized festival, but when there's when you kind of don't know what's going to happen next, and there's this this thrill of the unexpected, I think that's a great touch, and I think they should keep doing that. Five Finger Death Lunch shares music video for Times Like These. Robert Plant says performing with Led Zeppelin wouldn't satisfy his need to be stimulated. I can get that. I think that Robert Plant has actually put together a pretty decent solo career post Zeppelin. It may not quite fall into the pure cult, true necro genre of music, which we all love. But he's a phenomenal musician and a fantastic vocalist, even in his old age. I think he's 72 or 73 years old. And if you listen to some of the stuff that he's done recently, even when you listen to him play live, he still sounds absolutely at the top of his game. I would argue that his voice actually has gotten better as he's gotten older. There's not been, he's not lost any kind of power in the way that he sings. I think he's also been smart in the way that he has written recent music. I think he writes music to kind of go with what suits his voice best. And he also does that with the older songs. But again, just getting back to the Led Zeppelin question, I get where he's coming from. Can you imagine how many times that guy has been asked to sing Stairway to Heaven? The thing that was most mind-blowing to me is I remember reading the Robert Plant or a book. I can't remember whether it was his autobiography or just a book about him, but I read something somewhere where he was talking about when the day after Led Zeppelin had officially ended. I think he was only something like 29 years old. So imagine having lived that life and experienced all of those things that he had experienced, and you haven't even celebrated your 30th birthday yet. You kind of look at it and you go, what's next? I think you'd be a little bit lost, as he clearly was, but I think by his own admission. Anyways, is there anything else? At the Gates enlists atheist guitarist Daniel Martinez for North American tour. I would have hoped we would have heard some new atheist by now. And I certainly would have hoped we would have heard or gotten an update on when that very, very outstanding, and I God knows why fucking record labels are ignoring it, but the Till the Dirt project that Kelly Schaefer was doing, I don't know why that's not seen the light of day yet. But anyway, rock on Daniel Martinez. I would love to get Kelly back on the podcast again at some point. It'll be nice to catch up with him. But I do have at least right now, a reasonably full schedule for the next, I'd say, month to month and a half. I've mentioned Gregor McIntosh. I've got Jesse Mathewson from Ken Mode coming up. I've got one of the guys from Hell Militia. I definitely need to get the Dave Gray interview set up, as you can see from the swish new look of Mean Street Studios. I've got my camera. I've got my wireless mics that I can take on the road with me. So all set up and ready to roll. We just need to find a date. And then there's a few other things that are in the offing as well. So, but yeah, it would be cool to catch up with Kelly again. He's a great guy. Probably one of the nicest people I think I've met in this racket across 143 episodes. Watch Pro shot video of Metallica performing Blackened in Buffalo. Let's check that out, actually. I've been talking recently about how impressed I've been at how Metallica sounded on some of their recent live clips that they've been releasing. So, and you know what? I'm not mad at most of this of the set list that they referring to here as well. So this was apparently the set list when they played in Buffalo, New York. They started with Whiplash, big tick in the box for me. I've always thought that they should start with that song. Creeping Death, Enter Sandman, not so great. Ride the Lightning, great. The Memory Remains, not bad. Nothing Else Matters. I don't think there'll ever be a Metallica show without that song. Dirty Window, bullshit. Would remove that from the set list immediately. Sad But True, overrated, also gone. Whiskey in the Jar, for sure I wouldn't have in there. For Whom the Bell Tolls, we're getting back on track. Moth into a Flame, maybe one of the worst songs they ever wrote. Fade to Black, very good. Seek and Destroy, one of my favorite, if not my favorite Metallica song. And then you've got, as an encore, Blackened 1 and Master of Puppets. I mean, that's a fucking serious encore, that. So let's find that clip, and let's hope we don't get banned off YouTube for it. As a matter of fact, I'm going to just move it on by about a minute or so, because I want to hear him actually singing rather than us ruminating over the first minute or so, which is mostly intro. So we take it from 1 minute in.
Like an idiot, winter
I like it. I like the flames on stage as well. Clearly they realize that they can't fall behind Rammstein. I don't know whether I'm imagining this, but it looks to me like James Hetfield is getting into some pretty trim shape, which he's going to need to do now that he's a single man, and undoubtedly will be consorting with women at least 25 years younger than he. Yeah, like I said, I think that's very cool. By the way, speaking of getting banned from YouTube, he wasn't banned from YouTube, but last night, Andrew Tate, who I referenced when I was talking to John, was banned from Facebook and from Instagram. And this is probably a nice little segue into us going into some of the spicier topics. Now, I did talk to John about it, and look, I will say, just because I said I admire the fact that the guy has been able to make a lot of money from nothing, and by the way, that is a absolute fact. I know True Geordie and all these other fucking morons have talked about how he came from money, but my ex, as I mentioned, dated his coach at Storm Gym in Luton. I know from the conversations that I'd had with her and that I'd had with the coach that, Andrew and his brother Tristan had fuck all around that time. Nothing. I think they lent money from the Storm Gym coach. And, he's kind of leaned into this basically real-life pro wrestling heel persona, and he's turned it into something that can make him an extraordinary amount of money. I mean, that and the webcamming. His detractors, of which there are many, clutched themselves over the webcamming, and apparently he was also investigated for human trafficking, which, as far as I know, none of that is stuck. But the reality of it is, he talks an extraordinary amount of shit. I think a lot of it is an act. As I said, he's basically a wrestling heel in real life. Should he have been booted off Instagram and Facebook? I don't really see how what he's doing is any more harmful to the children, if we want to, steal a phrase from the South Park movie with Mrs. Broflovsky going, "What about the children?" Like I said, he talks a lot of crap, but I think, I've seen some articles blaming him for, boys sending rude Snapchats to girls at school. I think that was, the Liberals out in Victoria, Australia. And people are talking about how he's, promoting abuse towards women and all sorts of stuff like that. I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't agree with a lot of what he says, but I'm a free speech absolutist, and again, I would make this argument: if we're going to use the logic that he is harmful to kids, then I would ask why people like Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, the host of unhinged fucking, abortion celebrators and, other fucking mentally ill people that are on TikTok are allowed to kind of carry on with impunity. And no one is actually talking about that. I'll give an example of what I mean about this, about abortion celebrators. Now, I've spoken about abortion many times. You guys all know that I'm pro-choice, but I'm pro-choice having known women that went through the procedure, having known how traumatic it was for them, and in every single case, I've known 3 women who that happened to. In every single case, they said, I would never, ever want to go through that ever again. And, they took the necessary steps in their life to make sure that didn't happen. I have a great degree of empathy with people who have to go through that procedure because of the people that I've known who've said how traumatic it was. So, I think there's like there's a middle ground here where you can acknowledge that, woman for sure has the right to bodily autonomy, but at the same time has, there's a recognition that life is sacred and that it is not a fun experience to go through and something that you want to go through again and again. However, it doesn't help when you then have absolute fucking lunatics like these two, who I recently discovered on Libs of TikTok. I won't try and paraphrase any of the fucking trash coming out of their mouth, but I will. I'll let you guys hear it.
Between the two, having experienced both, I'm very much like, you know what? The surgical one was pretty big, girl. I did it without the anesthesia. Well, the local anesthesia. I didn't go under. Like, I stayed awake. I wanted the whole experience of it. I'm like, I want to look into your face when you're sucking that out of my body.
That's fucking kind of hot.
Why is like that hot? While I'm like up in freaking stirrups and I'm just like 21 and just like,
I bet your pussy looked really good where they pulled that dead baby out of it.
Yeah, they just
This could be a fetish. Wait a minute.
vacuum the whole.
I mean, that's not funny. It's fucking moronic. How anybody is going to try and convince me that pink-haired woman truly became pregnant through anything other than immaculate conception, I have no fucking idea. But yeah, if I had to, but the point of me talking about this and bringing this up, if I had to roll the dice as a parent of my kid seeing a Andrew Tate video, which I think anyone with a reasonable degree of common sense can probably pretty quickly understand is bullshit, and this crap, I think I could sooner and more easily deprogram them from anything Andrew Tate says to this kind of garbage. And so the point of it is, if you're going to ban Andrew Tate, if we're going to use the logic that his presence online is harmful to kids, then you best start cleaning up this sort of nonsense too. Because, I mean, this is just fucked up on a whole different level. A abortion fetish. There's again, like I said, I think you can recognize the right to a woman's bodily autonomy whilst admitting that it's a tough thing for anybody to go through, and going, thank Christ, as a man, I'm never going to have to do that, and therefore I have a degree of responsibility as well when I'm with somebody to make sure that I don't inflict that that sort of trauma on them. But I'll let you guys hear what these brain surgeons had to say across the next 30 seconds of their video.
Whole thing out.
Wait a minute.
Does abortion spa also have an OnlyFans?
OnlyFans abortions to help women pay for their fucking abortions. If people are into that, there's a fetish for that, to watch bloody fucking guts come out of a pussy. Somebody is into that.
Is this how we make abortions okay in capitalism?
Is it
Is
because
like we've got to find a way to not only the doctors are getting paid and it's safe and that yes, but also let's feed it back into the machine and like get the OnlyFans going.
OnlyFans paying.
Yeah. So anyway, moron alert, and also I love the tacit attack on capitalism, as though that's somehow to blame for the overturn of Roe v. Wade in North America. But yeah, like I said, I mean, look, at the end of the day, I'm a free speech absolutist, as I've said before. These people can say whatever they want. I have the right to call them morons and to make fun of them as much as I want. But as I said, the logic here is if you're going to remove somebody for something, then there's an awful lot that should be removed under the same precedent. I just personally think these people should maybe they need to pay a trip to the lion enclosure, which is one of the things that I promoted on last week's podcast as a solution to some of society's ills. Speaking of society's ills. I have also spoken an awful lot about the global elites and their intention to get us to start eating bugs. It turns out that this has been something that's been going on for a while, and it has not been, as some might suggest, a conspiracy theory to suggest that this is in the offing. I came upon an article from 2017 where the European Commission apparently had offered a $4.32 million prize to encourage people to eat insects. This was on Huffington Post, so clearly it's not something that's, it's not overseen by Bill O'Reilly or by, some other right-wing nut, but it says here, this was the summer of insects in the food world. Dana Goodyear wrote a piece on entomophagy, insect eating in the New Yorker. Daniela Martin wrote one year on HuffPost Food, and Angelina Jolie said her children eat crickets like Doritos. So far, the activity has been mostly rhetorical. People have been giving lip service to the ecological benefits of eating insects, but not that many people have actually been converted. Spoiler alert, it's because it's fucking disgusting and they taste like crap. And by the way, no one who is fortunate enough to live in the first world should have to eat insects because we have an abundance of food that fall outside of that category. But now the European Commission is putting money where all those foodie mouths are. It is offering a massive £2.65 million or $4.32 million to the group that comes up with the best idea for developing insects as a popular food. The Commission is counting on cattle and other large animals being an increasingly untenable source of protein in decades to come, and hopes that some research group will be able to devise ways to convince people to eat insects despite the inherent yuck value. That will never change because people's taste buds will never change, at least not to the point where they start eating fucking insects. But the European Commission are undeterred by the fact that people are not down with this. They recently posted the following tweet thread. Whether a snack or a food ingredient, did you know that there are currently 3 insects authorized in the EU novel food? House cricket, yellow mealworm, and migratory locusts are the 3 types of insects authorized as novel food in the EU market. Then they have very funky, cartoony, bright colors, because we should all get happy and joyful at the idea that they're going to take away our diet and force us to eat vermin. The FAO indicates that insects are highly nutritious and healthy food source. Insects contain high fat, protein, vitamin, fiber, and mineral content, and can facilitate the shifts towards healthy and sustainable diets. Novel food can only be authorized if it does not pose any risk to human health. It must undergo a scientific assessment prior to authorization to ensure its safety. And then they post a bunch of nonsense there about the ecological benefits of eating insects. The part that sticks in my craw most is the condescension in the final tweet in their thread. It's up to you to decide whether you want to eat them or not. The use of insects as an alternative source of protein is not new, and insects are regularly eaten in many parts of the world. Let's give it a try. They do that little question mark at the end. You can go fuck yourself. Because we all know that the heads of the European Commission will not be enjoying cricket souffle or grilled fucking mealworm at their next get-together. As a matter of fact, I looked into it, and apparently as a matter of fact, I've actually got a screen grab of it on my phone. At the the G7 that was held, the G7 summit that was held in the UK in 2021, in the year of our Lord 2021, the following delights were on the menu. So this was reported by the Washington Post. It says, on Saturday, the last night of the summit, leaders will gather for a slightly more informal barbecue, in quotes, on the beach. The menu includes canapes of scallops, mackerel, and crab claws, and a surf and turf meal of seared sirloin, lobsters, broccoli, beets, and potato chips, all from local purveyors. Ice cream sundaes will be served before the marshmallows and baked brie, and Cornish sparkling wine will be on offer. Your tax money hard at work, and the elites feasting upon what sounds like a fucking delicious menu, whilst telling us it's wonderful to start eating insects, even though you don't live in North Korea or other countries where people are forced to because they don't have enough food. And I often wonder to myself, like, do people put 2 and 2 together as to what these unhinged lunatics want, or the kind of life that they envision for us? We know they don't want us to continue eating meat. They want us to switch to insects. We know from the comments they've made, such as motor ownership is so 20th century, they no longer want us to be able to drive. So they want to take that degree of independence away from us also. We know that, very clearly, we're not allowed to speak our mind online as we wish. And they will find ways to enforce that. That does not just include banning us from social media. Obviously, we've had the police swarm people for retweeting memes here in the UK. I am willing to bet any amount of money that the 87,000 armed IRS officers that are being recruited in North America will almost certainly be unleashed upon anybody that, in their view, unduly criticizes the Biden administration, even though the Biden administration increasingly, to me, is starting to play out like a real-life version of Animal Farm. Anytime that they fuck up, they have the press secretary come on and basically go, comrades, surely you don't want Trump to come back? Surely not Trump! So yeah, I mean, we have a bright future ahead of us, as long as these fucking idiots stay in charge. Question is, is this the future, or is there going to be some kind of turning point? I mean, part of me, there's like a 5% sliver of hope that still remains in me that at some point things are going to turn around, and I think we'll have, for all of its faults, we'll have the internet to thank for that, because I feel like I think at the very least what we've done is taken away the monopoly on propaganda and information from the elites, from the governments. and we can start making sense of things for ourselves. But whatever happens, there's definitely a bumpy road ahead of us, and I think hopefully all of you guys are doing so. From my perspective, I think all you can do is try to prepare and anticipate, and I'm not saying become a prepper, but I think prepare as far as, trying to shore up some sort of nest egg for yourself to be able to survive from if things fuck up, keeping an eye on the news, not the propaganda. Put two and two together in terms of what's coming, and if you have to, I think we may need to think about moving to countries where this sort of shit is not being forced down people's throats. A couple of other interesting articles from the week, and I say interesting, by which I mean certifiably insane. The Mirror reports that burger that tastes like human flesh wins top vegan award. If you've ever hankered after the taste of human flesh, now you can sample it in the form of an all-new plant-based burger that claims to perfectly replicate the taste and texture of human meat. Has anyone in their right mind ever looked at a person walking down the street and gone, man, I wonder what that ass tastes like? In the non-sexual sense. Vox.com. Meat has a big carbon footprint. The Inflation Reduction Act ignores it. The Inflation Reduction Act also ignores common sense, basic economic theory, and various other things, but let's not bother thinking about that. New York Post has reported about Biden's Inflation Reduction Act. It will cost middle-class taxpayers $20 billion in new taxes. Big win for anybody that supported that fucking clown. CBS, I mean, again, when CBS is not in your corner anymore, you fucked up somewhere. One thing the Inflation Reduction Action may not do, lower inflation. So, again, shockingly enough, considering that inflation is not coming from people that are just fucking spending as much money as they possibly have, the actual inflation is coming from forces external to consumer spending, and so therefore, doing things like increasing interest rates and stuff like that to lower inflation is not going to help. There's another one here. Biden's new Title IX rules deputize teachers to override parents on gender identity, which I think is fucking insane, and I suspect is going to end up costing them the election. They're certainly going to get a fucking tanning come the midterms, but we'll see. Burger King Austria now asks customers, regular or with meat? The chain will automatically serve non-meat options unless specified otherwise by customers. Burger King fucking sucks. They have sucked for a long time. Their food is vile. And I think you should question not just whether you're actually getting meat when you go there, but whether you're actually getting actual vegetables, because I have the suspicion that it is probably ground up fucking cardboard. CNN reports, first possible case of human-to-dog monkeypox transmission, not surprising, WHO says. That is fucking mind-blowing, because I believe it was the WHO or the CDC that have now essentially admitted that it is no longer skin-to-skin contact, or it's never been skin-to-skin contact that is the primary transmission source of monkeypox. It is sexual intercourse, principally between men. If a dog has monkeypox, there's a very good chance that there was some zoophilia going on. But again, should that be surprising in a world where recently I saw a video, and maybe I can see if I can find it here. There was a zoophilia pride march in Germany, and shockingly enough, the government didn't use that as an opportunity to get all the idiots and the freaks together in one spot and say, roll up the tanks, boys, roll up the artillery and start firing so that we can rid society of this fucking riffraff. This was fucking hysterical as well. Scotland cut down 14 million trees to make way for wind turbines. So excellent example of the morons who are in charge of Scotland, really kind of leaning into that climate change agenda. I think that is pretty much it as far as crazy is concerned. Probably any of the other crazy things I might share that I've saved will get me into trouble. But, one thing I'll definitely say, just getting back to that question about the life that these imbeciles have envisioned for us, I think the thing that pisses me off the most about it is the amount of sacrifice that we are asked to make, and then in exchange, all we get is hot, steamy servings of failure. They ask us to eat insects to save the planet, yet nothing is done about coal power plants increasing in places like India and China. Nothing is even said about it. I mean, they can't exactly go and say, listen, if you guys don't shut down those coal power plants, we're putting boots on the ground. But at the same time, nothing is said about it because these people aren't serious about what they're talking about. All they're serious about is controlling us. I've mentioned before as well, CO2 emissions in Germany, in spite of $2 trillion spent on sustainable energy, is actually up. So that's a joke. Then they say, they're doing this, or they're asking us to make these sacrifices so that they can help those who are, underprivileged, and those that are poor and destitute. But we see tent cities in Los Angeles, San Francisco, London, all over, increase in size. So that's not getting any better either. In exchange for all of these taxes we pay them, you would hope maybe they cared a little bit about our safety and about our security. They don't give a fuck. The British police have now more or less admitted they don't even bother to investigate burglaries anymore. And the crime in places like New York, and major city centers in North America is fucking out of control. We even had a situation here in the UK on Oxford Street, super busy, 11:29 in the morning when, the place is going to be fucking rammed, especially this time of year. Someone was stabbed with a knife, and I'm pretty confident nothing has happened with it, or nothing has happened about it. So we have to sacrifice. Naturally, they don't. They can fly in their private planes, cruise around in their cars. The mayor of the UK, Sadiq Imbecile Khan, went to take his dog for a walk and had a security detail following him with 3 separate cars, he and his Range Rover, all to travel 1.4 miles to take the dog to the park. But he tells us we have to stop driving. There are so many ways in which these people should go fuck themselves. And like I said, I think that part of me that holds out hope that things are going to change is also the part of me that holds out hope for when that change comes. These people get an ass-kicking of historical proportions because they absolutely deserve it. Folks, I think that we have more or less set the world to rights. We've listened to some good music, and we've had us a swell old time. One of the things I was thinking I can potentially start to do is also read some of the comments that I get from folks who check out the podcast. So I'm going to head over to last week's episode of Into the Necrosphere, where, for those that don't know, I interviewed AV of the Mighty Abduction. And let's see if there's anything here that is worth checking out. Carl Haikara, the host of the Soul Knox podcast, writes, Thomas Erickson's podcast is still going. It's just long periods of time between them, that being Thomas Erickson of Mork. Like I said, I would have loved to have Thomas on the podcast, but sadly, Sarah Lease is a fucking imbecile. He recently did one with the guys in Skepticism, and it was great. I also agree about the Bloodbath song, and I was a real big fan of the first 2 with Nick. I thought they were really dark, with a great vibe, but not so into the new direction. I agree. Derek Courtney writes, cool episode. Megadeth are 3 from 3. Megadave at the moment is in top form. Not quite down with a 3 from 3. It's one win, 1 draw, 1 loss. But their last win was good. And like I said, I do think he sounded really, really good. Costa Margarita says, Dave Mustaine's voice at the age of 60 doesn't look bad. I think he meant doesn't sound bad. But again, I strongly agree with him. I think Dave's voice does actually sound very, very good. Let's see if there was much else said on the previous one to that. So I'm now looking at episode 140 with Jason Pepiat of Psychroptic. Iron Horse wrote, awesome show, brother. You and Alan Averill's podcast are hitting it out of the park each and every week. Alan and I were going to record another episode, but for whatever reason, calendars just didn't align. So I think it may be a while before we have that chat again. I'm still a big fan of Alan, obviously musically very much. I like his podcast. But he's a busy guy, so am I. So hopefully we'll find a way to make it happen at some point. Konstantinos666, great show as always, and great news for next week. The new Behemoth is winning me over. Last album sucked. The second video for it was pretty cool. You should check it out. Any chance of interviewing Glenn Benton in the future? That would be awesome. I would love to have Glenn on. Maybe when the new record comes out, I'll have an opportunity to do so. But then again, I also, everyone is going to be wanting to interview the guy. So, will there be a chance of that happening? I'm not so sure. I'll tell you how you guys can make that happen. Make sure that you guys are, if you do buy anything off the Deicide Bandcamp, make sure that they know that, you want them or you want Glenn on Into the Necrosphere. That helps. Quite a lot of the conversations that I've had on this podcast, especially early on in the show, happened because of, absolute badasses that listen to this podcast, going on Bandcamp, telling the bands they need to come on, or not harassing them, but at least, making a comment on social media and saying, hey, Brock from Panzerfaust, you need to get on the podcast. It was actually Scott Bamford who made the first Brock interview, Brock of Panzerfaust fame. It was actually him that made it happen. So you guys can contribute that way. If you want to see a guest on the show, A, tell me about it, and B, make sure that you keep on beating the old drum for Into the Necrosphere, and who knows, it might happen. Yuan T, what a great episode. It was super fun. The conversation with Jason about his job got me thinking about mine and this culture that preaches do what you love, find a job you love, blah, blah. It's painful, and about the band, their new album is amazing. I've kind of made, you guys will probably pick this up from some of the comments I've made. I've made peace with the fact that I'm not ever going to be a, paid podcaster or paid radio presenter or anything like that. And I must admit, I actually enjoy my job. It's fucking stressful. It's very busy, especially now. But I do like it. I think in life, it's all about framing. And I think you sometimes need to, I treat my job a little bit like a game. If I'm winning, I'm winning the game. I'm losing the game, and it does help. It's would I prefer to not do anything? If I won the Euro Millions right now, I can tell you for sure they would never see me again at the office. But at the same time, I spend maybe 10, 11 hours a day working. I can either be miserable about it and sit and sulk and wish the day would go by, in which case it's most likely just going to drag, or I can, I can sort of make the most out of it, and that's been a bit of a change in my thinking as well over the last couple of years. But I think that change has helped. Crystal Philosopher, and this is the last comment I'll read. LOL, vegan gains. I remember that guy. He was, and still most likely is, an absolute fucking turd. And folks, that is the news done for this week. That wraps it up for this week, folks. Thank you so much if you've stuck around until the very end. There are so many different metal podcasts to listen to, and you've chosen to listen to mine. I think that is absolutely badass. So thank you very much for that. I will be back next week. A guest to be announced. I know who he is. But that episode hasn't been recorded yet, and you know what I'm like with the superstition. But whatever it is that you are doing, wherever it is that you are, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you bad motherfuckers again next week.
The best coming is just around the corner.